Hello students, welcome to this series on business communication. Today we are going to study non-verbal communication, which is also known as the body language. Now, according to Ludwig, the human body is the best picture of the human soul. According to Julius Fast, what often happens in any relationship is that language itself becomes a mask and a means of clouding and confusing the relationship. If the spoken language is stripped away and the only communication left is body language, the truth will find some way of pulling through. Spoken language itself is an obscura. Now let's define what is non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is a type of a communication by which we communicate ideas, opinions and attitudes to the people without using words. It is a kind of a supporting communication, or it is a kind of a emotional exchange. According to Meyerbeer in 1971, he found that nonverbal aspects were a significant part of communication, particularly when mixed with the messages sent. Nonverbal behavior is usually understood as the process of communication through which the sending and the receiving is of the wordless messages. It is through your emotions, your facial gestures and your body language. Now, the nonverbal behavior is generally used to express your emotion, your attitudes and your personality traits. The basic confidence of a personality or the basic attribute or the inner ability of the personality is genuinely displayed by the nonverbal communication. Now, let's see this diagram in which the impact of communication is shown. Now, when you take up communication, it is only 7% of the impact which is given through words. Imagine, it's such a meager impact. And 93% impact comes from the non-verbal aspect, which is again broken into the tone, that is 36%, and body language is 57%. So you can see in this figure that what is the impact of body language on the communication. This type of communication is genuinely in interpersonal relationships or face-to-face communication. But when we take the voice or the voice type of communication, in this the words carry only a 14% impact. The non-verbal or the para-language puts a 86% impact, that is tone is most important in the non-verbal communication. There are 7 types of behaviors related to non-verbal communication, which are as follows. First is proxemics, then is haptics, chronomics, kinesics, artifacts, vocalics and environment. Now we are going to study each aspect in details. This will help you in better understanding of the communication. Now, what is proxemics? Proxemics is a type of communication which is related to distance. Different cultures have different comfort levels. Now, when a child grows up, he tries to leave the space from the mother at the age of 6 or 7 months. Now, when you take up this distance as a part of communication, you can genuinely depict the behavior of the people in terms of their relationships, whether they are intimate or formal relationships. See, according to Edward T. Halls, he said there are 4 levels of distance. First is the intimate distance, which is shared by 0 to 8 inches between the very intimate relationships of lovers, husbands or intimate friends or parents or children. Then is the personal distance, that is 18 inches to 4 feet. This is a kind of a formal distance which you share with your friends or with meetings and all. Social is when you go for parties or when you are in meetings, you share a distance of 4 to 10 feet. Then is the public distance, that is 10 feet to infinite, that is the politicians or the public speakers use this kind of distance to convey the message. Second is chronomics. Now, chronomics is a kind of a communication which is related to time. It is generally said that in the cultures, different time have different meanings. Like you have monochronic cultures, then you have polychronic cultures. In monochronic cultures, time is important, there are deadlines, there are schedules and you have to be punctual. And when you don't reach on time, it is considered as a bad behavior or it is a misbehavior. But in polychronic cultures, coming late is a part of a lifestyle. So when you take up time as a part of communication, it displays lot about your personality and lot about your commitments. A research by Bergen in 1989 found that people who arrive 15 minutes late are considered dynamic but less competent, composed and sociable than who arrive at time. So time is important in relationships, time is important to manage life. We have a kind of a time schedule which is genuinely of importance and communicates lot about your behavior. You have public time is for checking, directing, going into libraries or to shops. Then you have social time, making purchasing or buying some things or inquiring about services. Then you have personal time which you go to the doctors or to the professionals. Then you have intimate time, which is the time you share with your friends, relatives and your intimate relationships. So much about the time is important, which depicts your behavior and the characteristics. Now let's study kinesics. What is kinesics? This is a kind of a communication which is displayed by the facial expressions, eye contact, body language, gestures and physical appearances. Now what are facial expressions? Facial expressions are an important part of communication. According to Birdswhistle, in 1970, he said that the face is capable of expressing at least 250,000 expressions. So it is a huge amount of values, it is huge amount of expressions, and it is huge amount of expressions and emotions which come through your face. Face is the index of the body. Smiling face genuinely increases the likability and the sociability of the person. People who genuinely serve with good smiles and gestures genuinely get higher tips. This is a research done by Heslin in 1982. Now, when you do this kind of research, you genuinely find that attractive people, or people with good faces or with good gestures, have higher successes in life. Let's study eye contact. Why eye contact is necessary in a relationship? See, successful people who genuinely try to have a complementary relationship, or who try to compliance people, have a kind of a 60 to 70% of eye contact throughout the talking or throughout the relationships which they share in a kind of a particular situation. The eye contact genuinely depicts a sense of sincerity and a kind of a trust and a kind of a hope in a relationship which is genuinely accepted by people. This kind of study is also known as oculex in non-verbal behavior. Now, eyes are the basic windows of the souls of the human personality. The basic messages which are displayed by the human beings are genuinely very truthful and they cannot be deceptive. Controlling a person's gaze is important in communication. Let's see, controlling a person's gaze relate to a person's brain. 87% is from eyes, 9% is from ears and 4% is from other senses. So you have gazes related to a business gaze, social gaze and intimate gaze. So crossing any kind of limit in any kind of relationship will be indecency or will be a kind of a negative communication. So people have to realize when they are in communication with people, what is the respectable kind of the eye contact which is responsible to carry a level of trust in your relationships. Now, oculex is a basic science which genuinely gives you a lot about the information conveyed through eyes. Normal eye blinks per minute should be 8 to 6 per minute, or excessive signals of eye blink could be deceptive. Staring at interviewer or some kind of a person would genuinely make him uncomfortable. So your gaze or your kind of relationship of sharing with the eye information or eye contact should be reasonably for 60% of the time, which genuinely cultivates a relationship of trust. Now come to body language. When you speak about body language, when you mirror the body language of the other person, it builds a kind of a communication which is genuinely a communication which is likable by people. People like those who are similar in their behavior. Mirroring body language is a kind of a communication which facilitates or completes the total communication. Gestures are subtle kind of communication which are supported by the words or are supported by the other kind of body languages. When we use gestures, they take the place of words or they help us to increase the understanding of a particular message sent. Let's come to physical appearance. How physical appearance is important in communication. A research by Knapp in 1992 shows that more attractive people are judged to be happier, more intelligent, friendlier, stronger and kinder, and thought to have better personalities, better jobs and greater marital competence. Attractive people get more dates, higher grades, higher trips and lighter quote sentences than unattractive people. So these research basically shows that if you have a good personality or if you are well dressed or if you look into your basic physical appearances, you can go higher in life, and this communication puts a positive impact on a relationship. Then come to artifacts. Artifacts are related to your dress, to your belongingness or to the accessories which you support to your personality. Material objects speak along about a relationship or they speak along about a personality. Artifacts are generally a kind of a communication which is genuinely conveyed through accessories. Clothing is a powerful kind of a media of communication. The impact which the clothes put on a personality is beyond imagination. People tend to have a negative image about people who are not well dressed or genuinely wear dirty clothes or dirty shoes. People are not liked by other people in the society. To have a social prestige, it is necessary that you dress up for yourself and put a kind of effort to give a pleasing physical appearances. Now come to vocalics. Vocalics is also known as paralanguage. The voice to communicate includes the elements such as pitch, rate, pause, volume, tone of voice, silences, laugh, scream, size. Now, when we use a language, basically the tone becomes important. So, the supporting tone which is used in communication is related to paralanguage. The paralanguage basically, if it is genuinely taken up in a positive way, would give you a soothing impact to your communication. And if the pitch or the rate of the communication is very high, this would put up into a kind of a negative impact even to the positive messages you sent. Studies have found that people who talk louder, faster and more fluently are more persuasive. They are liked by people, they are in the commanding positions. Deep voices have a good impact on the relationships, but people who genuinely stammer or don't have a good communication style genuinely convey a kind of a negativity to the environment. Now let's come to the other aspect of communication, that is environment. Environment is the kind of communication which is genuinely a kind of surroundings which speak for yourself. The surroundings you live, the room, the office, the lighting, the space, the decoration, everything speaks about the aspect of your personality. Now, environment is important because the way we decorate, the way we genuinely arrange things in the house or in shop, in office, genuinely have an impact on the behavior and the communication which you genuinely take up in a particular situation. Several researchers have shown that the way the malls are arranged or the strategic markets are arranged put an impact on the buying behavior of the consumers. Staples such as dairy, food, milk products are arranged in such a way or at the exit level because they could be picked up by the customers in an easy way. The children products which are genuinely attracted by the kids are generally arranged at the lower levels or the lower shelves, so the children can have a good look on the products and can have interest in buy the products. This is the research done by Field Myers in 1997. Now, the non-verbal communication is important part of building up relationships. It is a building kind of the marketing strategies, or it builds up the promotional programs for the companies, or any kind of communication not supported by non-verbal communication will not work in the market. Now, what are the basic uses of non-verbal communication? The basic uses of non-verbal communication are like it helps you to express your emotion, it helps to convey your attitude, your positivity or negativity is genuinely conveyed by the kind of the body language which you have. The personality is basically communicated through the non-verbal behavior. We felicitate, we modify the spoken language or the silence through the non-verbal communication. We try to complement, we try to repeat, we try to substitute any kind of communication through the wordless communication. We contradict the verbal communication through non-verbal communication. We substitute the verbal messages through the non-verbal communication. So, non-verbal communication is an indispensable part of communication. It is a magical form of communication which transforms personalities and kinds of relationships and helps to build you trust in a kind of a relationship. Now, what could be the negative impacts when non-verbal communication is not taken seriously? It can break up relationships. Avoiding eye contact can break up friendships. Closing eyes or tensity can genuinely stress your face and put the facial muscles under pressure. Excessive yawning could show disinterest, could genuinely detract people or repel people. Using body language conveying negative aspects or lack of confidence would put you at a lower level in life. So, it is important to work on the non-verbal aspects of communication. The skills which have to be built up non-verbal communication are important, and they require time and efforts to build up a kind of a behavior which could repeat, which could substitute, complement and accent and contradict your verbal communication. It is important that all kind of verbal messages have to be supported by non-verbal behavior. The potential benefits of non-verbal behavior are important because it helps in the kind of the rapid or the speedy communication. It helps in the simplification of the complex messages. It helps you to grab the attention of the audiences. It also makes the messages more attractive and gives a deeper meaning to your size, to your personality and to your inner levels of the kind of the expressions which you want to give to the people. Now, colors have a basic impact on communication. What is the impact of colors in communication? I have shown you in this block 5 kinds of colors. Yellow cheers and elevates mood. Red excites and builds up romances. Blue cools and comforts us. In some cultures, black genuinely suggests mourning and white is considered as a color of purity. So, whenever you choose colors for your surroundings and for your body, Genuinely try to relate the emotions and the kind of senses which are genuinely conveyed through the colors. This will help you in better arrangement of your messages to the people. The barriers in the non-verbal communication could be the distractions, could be excessive luxuries which you use in your rooms, the excessive lighting or the excessive kind of the overdone of the messages could distract or maybe making your communication a kind of a failure. Now, when you do a kind of a study of kinesics, which is a deeper science related to the postures, gestures, facial expressions, body leans, ambulations, cultural and ethnic difference, we have to study the emotions. Now, the emotions are basically of 6 types. First is anger, joy, disgust, fear, sadness and surprise. Emotions, when displayed in a positive way, could genuinely identify the relationships. The basic emotions appear at a very early stage of life when a child takes birth. For first 2 or 3 months, he is not able to discuss or express the positive emotions because he is not able to identify. At the age of 4 months to 6 months, he genuinely identifies people and tries to smile at people. This is the basic age of building emotions. So, at a very early stage, when you grow up, you are communicating to the world through the emotions. The nature of the emotions, according to Harold Schoolsberg, found 3 dimensions. The first dimension goes from pleasant to unpleasant. The second dimension goes from attention to experience. The third dimension goes from intense to one extreme to neutral to the other. So, the behavioral aspects which are designed by the emotions genuinely design the non-verbal aspects of your communication. If for the younger children, it is very easy to express them because they are not deceptive, they don't know how to hide the messages. So, they could be like showing anything through their body language. But when you grow up or you get mature, you are taught to control the body emotions. Like in the Japanese, when they go for negotiations, they have to strategize the body language in such a way that they would genuinely display a kind of a mystery and would not show any interest to any kind of feature which genuinely could attract them. So, controlling the body language in most of the strategic positions of the business is genuinely taught to the people at the higher stage. But the pure form of non-verbal communication is displayed basically in children, where genuinely they are very happy to express themselves in any kind of situation. It is pain or pleasure automatically comes to their face and the body. Now, the non-verbal communication also takes a different shape when it comes to the gender differences. Now, men communicate in a different way and women communicate in a different way. Women try to prefer conversation which is genuinely displayed in a kind of a warm situation. They want to build up relationships, they want empathy and a kind of a sincerity. They want compliments and they try to empathize politeness through their body language. But when you consider the male communication, they genuinely display their body language to show their independence. They work out on problems rather on relationships. They are more intimating about the quickness of the message. They call for attention to their accomplishment rather to the warmness. Now, dress is an important part of communication. How dress attracts people. Clothing indicates a great amount of information. It identifies the sex, age, socio-economic class, status, role, group membership, personality, mood, physical climate and time. See, whatever you wear could be genuinely very formal or very casual, or it could be a uniform which you wear in school. The uniforms of the school could be identified which school you belong or which organization you belong, which the uniform carries the logo. So, the dress basically is the identification. Why do we dress up? There is a kind of an inner kind of a feel which is associated to the behavior which we require or which we display through the dresses. It is a desire to confirm, a desire for self-expression, a desire for aesthetic satisfaction. It is a kind of dress for your prestige value, the desire for social participation and the physical comfort in the economy, which that is the class to which you belong or the amount of money you have. So, dresses are an important part of non-verbal communication which genuinely speak a lot about your status, about your strata, about your country, about your social, about the kind of the climatic conditions from where you come, and also about the professions, like the lawyers could wear a black coat or the doctors could wear a kind of a white coat. So, imagine the total persona of a person is genuinely conveyed by the dresses he wears. Now, let's study the expectancy violation theory by Bullers-Burgon in 1986. People have expectations about what constitutes appropriate behaviors in social situations. Like when you cross a lift or you climb up the stairs in a kind of a social institution, what is the behavior genuinely required? You cannot violate these kinds of behaviors non-verbally also, like if you are smelling, you are dressed up dirtily, or you are genuinely displaying negative emotions in terms of staring people will never accept you. So the range of interpretations of the behavior at social situations is required to control the body language in such a way that these are part of etiquettes to be designed or displayed in social situations. Then you have Henley's different areas of body expressions. Body expresses one social role. The front stage performance of the role is the social status. That is, the performance is important. Performance is you have to have gestures which are positively respectful to the people. You cannot insult people even by your non-verbal behavior. More than the facts, the interpretation of facts by non-verbal communication is important. There are three themes by which you could study non-verbal communication according to Emerson. We have to look to activity to learn the theme. It is the frame, what is really going on. Non-verbal communication occurs in three areas, that is the setting, the language and the demeanor. Basically the setting is the kind of the physical appearances or the kind of the situation in which you are working. The language is basically it is English or any local or regional or any language belonging to any culture speaks a lot about yourself, and the demeanor is the kind of the persona or the kind of the non-verbal aspects associated to the language. Now in this section I would genuinely give you some photographs which would genuinely display a kind of behavior which is wordless. Let's see this picture. When children are small, they tell a lie. How do they lick out? They put their hands on their mouth. Let's see this picture. A teenager might refine her inherent gesture by simply bringing tips of fingers to her mouth. This man, adult, may bring a finger to the edge of the mouth thinking. Let's see the behavior of the palm. Palm is the hand position. This open arms genuinely are a kind of request or appeal, a desire to hold or stop something down. This palm expresses submission. This palm expresses authority. This closed palm with extended finger genuinely points out. Veterans of point deception are genuinely politicians. Remember, this is the position of submissiveness. When politicians take up the position, most of the behavior is controlled by the handshakes. What could be genuinely displayed by the handshakes? It is the dominance, submissions or equality. Let's see this handshake. Here dominance is shown by turning hand so that the palm is facing down the handshake. This is shown by turning hand so that the palm is facing upwards during the hands. This is submission. Equality is shown when both the hands meet up at an equal level. You have hybrid handshakes. This is a glove handshake. You have the collapsing handshake. You have the knuckle cruncher handshake. This is the dead fish handshake. This is the finger strip claps. Straight arm extension handshake. Now let's come to the hands. Hand clenching, a negative emotion, genuinely conveys nervousness. Hand clenching is not a good sign of body language. It basically conveys frustration and negativity. Then come to hand steepling, a negative gesture. Hand holding behind the back, again a negative gesture. Don't confuse hand holding behind the back or the arm holding a kind of a level of confidence. Thumb presentation, then fingers, hand, face, head and neck gestures. See fingers on mouth, confusing. Hand on cheek or neck, tensed. Gesture of interest when hand on eyes. Forming a decision, this is a decision gesture. Then come to the deceit gestures. Deceit is like you don't want to convey the exact kind of the expression. So you cover that expression with your hand. This is your hand on mouth, a kind of gesture to hide. This is nose touch gesture, a negative gesture. The eye rub gesture, negative gesture. The ear rub gesture. Hand to neck gesture. Hands behind hand, all negative gestures. Now come to the language of arms. Folded arms, genuinely a deceptive language. Folded arm with clenched fist, again a negative language. Arm gripping, again a negative language. Single arm cross, sophisticated arm cross, these are all barriers in communication. Come to the non-verbal behavior of the legs and feet. This is the crossing of the knee, leg, which is again a negative gesture. Ankle cross, this is ankle to knee cross, this is negative. Then only ankle cross. Then this is genuinely a folded legs. Language of hair, head and face. See this. This picture shows hair stroking and head tossing, a negative gesture. Head twisting, again a negative gesture. Head tilt, negative gesture. Backward head tilt, lifted eyebrow, raised eyebrows, wide eyes, nose flare, skewed mouth. These are kind of barriers in non-verbal communication which genuinely have to be managed by people. These all pictures genuinely have showed you a kind of a behavior which is not desired in time of social acceptance or in terms of the society in which we are bringing up. The society genuinely is designed by a kind of a behavior which genuinely gives a kind of a comfort and a kind of a soothing acceptance to the people also. So, we have to control our body language in such a way that genuinely even when we are in social situations, when we are not talking to people, we cannot be kind of disrespectful to the people. Now, the body language speaks a lot about your confidence and about your assertiveness. A kind of aggressive body language genuinely puts people into a kind of a negative relationship. To build a positive relationship, you must have a kind of a emotional body language which has to be open-handed or which has to be acceptable. Now, let's study the impression management or the impressions which are genuinely designed by the non-verbal behavior. The first impression, like whenever you enter the room or whenever you enter for an interview, the first impression is just formed in first 4 seconds. So, these 4 seconds are important for you. What is important in these 4 seconds? Your dress, your grooming, your voice, handshake, eye contact and body posture. This is important. To manage impressions is important. Positive first impression helps you to build up a kind of a positive relationship. But when the impression is negative, the relationship breaks and the communication breaks. People genuinely don't take efforts to reverse this kind of communication. The negative relationship genuinely is difficult to be converted into kind of a positive relationship, or the relationship is broken at this point only. That is, in first 4 seconds you break up the kind of the communication which you want to build up with the other person. Many people give up at this point only. But to manage the first impression is important. You must work on your accent, your kind of clothing, kind of control of your hands and your kind of eye contact. Now, knowledge is important when you relate to people. The breadth of the knowledge, that is at the level which you share your emotions with the people is important, because when you read a lot and share a kind of a similar stage with the people, genuinely people like that stage because people want to communicate and interact with people of their equal status. Research has shown that more people have in common, the better they like each other. So, to reading is important and to increase your knowledge breadth is important. How can you increase the breadth of knowledge? It is, don't spend the non-productive time whiling away. Use this non-productive time in watching TV, reading magazines and at least read 4 or 5 books per year. Reading daily newspapers puts you in a better shape. Interacting with different people helps you in enhancing your listening ability. And enthusiasm, which is a part of your body language and a part of non-verbal communication, builds up a better work relationships. People like to work with people who are enthusiastic about their work. Enthusiastic people seem to work harder, longer and more accurately. Enthusiasm is a kind of a projected behavior which makes people attractive and has more followers and build the teams easily. So, building up a powerful image through non-verbal communication is important because it helps you in building up the interpersonal relationship. From the beginning to end, every relationship is designed by the word, gesture, expression and the kind of each emotion which you design in or you vibe out with that relationship is important. So, I hope the students must have understood the importance of the non-verbal communication and the impact on their personality. Non-verbal communication is not only important for your personal relationships, but it is also important to build up the corporate kind of the marketing strategies or the kind of the global business markets which are important for the survival or for the prosperity of the nation and the economy. Thank you, students.